We're going to get started. I know folks are still coming in, but we really want to be respectful of time and allow you guys to get out of here at 8 o'clock. I know that Brett LaRose would like to say a few words before we get started on the safety front, so we'll let him do that, and then we'll get started.
Great, thanks. It doesn't have anything to do with why you're here. So town building, I just need to quickly remind everybody, safety. Egress, so this is a larger building than much larger building than the old fire station. But in the unlikely event of an emergency, either head out the way you came in, do not use the elevator, and your secondary means of egress is through this door and then hang a left down the staircase and out the front door, okay? We're required to provide you with water, so help yourself to that cooler over there. Right out this door, hang a left, go through this single door, you'll find public restrooms. 2 of them, they're unisex bathrooms, and then those of you looking for your kids, you can go right through that door and hang a right, you'll find them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Brett.
Okay, so I just want to welcome you all. Thank you so much for coming. I know on a night like this it's really hard to leave your cozy, warm house to come out for a meeting, but we're so appreciative that you're here and taking the time to have this important conversation. My name is Krista Seringo, and I am the chair of the Community Engagement Committee for the school board. And that committee is made up of board members as well as some staff members and students and community members. And we've been working together for about a year now, and we've had a couple of different things that we've been focusing on. This past spring, some of you might have participated in the interviews that we conducted around the 5 towns. So we conducted over 115 individual interviews, and we followed up with an online survey. And we asked lots of questions about what people thought about how things are going in our district. But we also asked if folks could weigh in on what they thought were the most important topics that we should discuss as a community and weigh in on with respect to education in our district. And the top 2 priorities were communication channels. So we got feedback that folks felt we could be doing a better job communicating internally and externally within our district. And then we also heard that people wanted to talk about facilities. And those 2 things really aligned with what our board was thinking. So we're a newly unified board, and we recognize that it's really important for us to stay engaged with our towns and our community schools, even though we don't have school boards in all of those towns anymore. And we also recognize the need to talk about facilities. So most of you are aware that we had 3 failed bond votes to renovate Mount Abe, and that's a building that still needs to be renovated. But as a newly unified board, we were looking at that responsibility as well as all of the other buildings in our district. We're also grappling with some challenges that I think you've probably heard about, statewide challenges like declining enrollment, increasing costs to deliver a quality education. So we felt like this was an opportunity for us to both build our communication within our community, to establish some really great frameworks for how we engage and get input from our community, and do that now at this time around a really important issue, which is how are we going to plan for our facilities moving forward. So this process begins with these conversations like the one we're having tonight, and we have had a similar conversation in all of the other towns in our district. We've also been talking with students and with staff members, and our process involves first having this conversation around what do we all value and want for our kids to have achieved, what skills do we want them to have developed, what are our goals for them when we imagine them graduating from Mount Abe. That framework or that foundation is really important as we think about facilities. What do the spaces that they learn in and around need to look like and be able to provide if those are our goals. On November 5th, we're going to then get together and share what we learned from all of these individual conversations that we've been having. So what are our shared interests and goals? How are we all aligned around a similar vision for our kids' education? And then we'll do some brainstorming around what should our buildings look like? And then on November 20th, we'll contemplate some specific scenarios that are really just talking points, a way to get the conversation started. We'll provide some information around demographics, financials, and we'll spend more time looking at the nitty-gritty of what this could look like and weighing the potential benefits and challenges with a variety of different options we could consider. So we really hope and encourage you to stay engaged. This is the first step in a process that does have an end. The goal is to get to January, where we'll present all of this information and input to the school board and to district leaders so that we can think about what next steps we might want to take. So before we make a big financial investment and a time investment in hiring architects to consider specific plans, we want to make sure that we're doing that with your input in mind. And so the more people we have thinking about this problem that we've got to figure out together and sharing their different thoughts, the more valuable we think the process of moving forward will be. So thanks for being with us, and I'd like to introduce our facilitator. We've been working with Sue McCormick for about a year now. She is the founder of Creative Discourse, and she's a fellow with Everyday Democracy. She spent her career helping communities like ours, grassroots organizations, municipalities, working toward building dialogue toward effective and productive change. So she seems like a great partner in this work, and we've been really lucky to be able to work with her. So Sue's going to lead us through the evening. So thanks for being here. And there are more chairs scattered around there and here, so I hope folks are able to get what they need. There are refreshments. We have the happy problem of having so many folks in this great space, so hopefully everybody's comfortable and has what they need.
Great, thank you, Krista. Hi everyone, I'm Sue McCormick. I'm really happy to be here. This is the last town, so it's been this whirlwind tour of your 5 towns, and it's really been great. I won't talk too much about myself, but I will tell you this. I am really passionate about people and communities having a say about important decisions that affect them. And I think communities are much better off when people have a chance to weigh in and when leaders listen. And so that's why I do this work, and I'm really happy that you're all here to have a say about these things. Before we start, I thought we could do some introductions. There are a lot of people here, but I could skip this part, Krista, but I think we should try to do it fast, right?
Sure.
Let's do it fast, because it's been kind of fun in other towns. So we're going to invite you, first of all, to stand up, just because many of us have been sitting a lot in our jobs. Some of us have been on our feet all day, so for those of you who've been on your feet, I apologize. But we're going to do a really fast go-round, and I would love to encourage the people outside to try to come into the circle, so there's nobody standing behind the circle. We have a great problem of a lot of people here. And thank you. So I'm just going to invite you to do this very quickly, which is to say your name and one thing you really love about Bristol. I'll give you a moment to think about what that is, and if it can be a phrase or a sentence at the most. And we'll do this really quickly. So once you have your thing. Krista, can we start with you and go around?
Sure, I'm Krista, and I love that we can walk so many places in our village.
I'm Meg, and I'm so grateful that my kids have a safe and healthy place to grow up.
I'm Taryn. I moved here a year ago, and I am so thankful for the community here.
I'm Carrie. I like how there's lots of generations that grew up here and still go to school here.
I'm Mandy, and I love that my family's all over the place here.
I'm Daniel, and I really enjoy the sense of connectedness I feel with the community.
I'm Ryan, and I love that my kids can walk to school.
I'm Allison, and I love the fact that we have kind of your traditional Main Street and a town green, and there's a very central local place for everyone to gather, and it seems like everybody knows each other and everybody looks out for one another.
My name's Meredith, and I really enjoy the sidewalks that just connect us all.
Hi, I'm Allison, and I love the elementary school here in Bristol.
I'm Erin, and I love all the community events in Bristol.
I'm Jill, and I love that when I'm walking in the hallways of the school, I feel like I recognize so many faces.
I'm Brett. I like the accessibility of our community, the sidewalks, access to the schools, and all the great things that the town has to offer.
John, I don't know what the question is.
Great.
I'm Peter, and we love taking our kids to the park.
I'm Travis, and I love the safety in the community with my family and my kids.
I'm Amelia, and I love the access that we have to all sorts of different spaces.
I'm Alice, and I love that this town just keeps evolving and changing in all kinds of interesting ways.
I'm Liz, and I love the Lawrence Memorial Library.
I'm Sally, and I love that nature is so close to us. Water, hills, trees, and open, clean air, all that.
I'm Andy, and I love that it's a great community, and I'm from Moncton and missed our meeting, so thanks for
I'm Anne Marie, and I'm going to say the same thing. And I also do like that Bristol welcomes all of the towns, that we are the 5 towns.
I'm Elizabeth Marr, and I love everything that people said, and I also think that Bristol's a town that when you come into it, you go, ah, like it's like the skies open up and the clouds part, and it's like just got it all.
I'm Mary, and I love media that's local and meaningful, and I run the local TV station. And if anybody is uncomfortable with the camera, let me know, and I'll avoid you. But I know this guy.
I'm Bill. I love the people.
I'm Mary, and I love the healthy community.
I'm Sarah, and I love that all but about 5 of my 21 first cousins still live.
I'm Wanda, and I love the fact that we can trust everyone in our community to take care of each other.
I'm Allie, and I love the diversity of thought that happens in Bristol. It really spans the spectrum, and I appreciate that diversity.
I'm Jennifer, and I love the people here in Bristol.
I'm Kathleen, and I love the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, because I feel like this village really takes care of all of our children, so it's my favorite.
I'm Carl. I love Halloween in this town.
I'm Kevin. I love being a villager, and we're on the corner of North and Pleasant, so we see about 750.
But it's not your favorite.
It's my wife's.
My name is Fred, and I love that Bristol's a small town, and there's lots of things to do here.
I'm Gary. Human scale potentials.
I'm Ian, and I love the supportive community that's here.
I'm Kate, and my family loves the New Haven River.
I'm Marcy, and I love raising my kids in this village. I do miss living on Elm Street, where we had lots and lots of trick-or-treaters. We live just outside of town now, but it's great.
I'm Justin. I don't love that I was one of the last people to share. You all took mine, but I love the Mount 8 football team. We have our last game on Friday. So.
I'm Annie. I also love Halloween and the 4th of July, so just my town.
Mark. I like the people. I love jumping in the river.
I'm Chris, and I like going to the sports fields where I grew up playing.
I don't like going last. I like what Sally said. I was going to say that, but I got to go to an open audition at Mount 8 for the musical, and that was really cool. That was really welcoming. That was heartwarming.
Thank you, everybody. Wow, what a great place. I want to move here. All the way from Essex. That's great. Thank you all for doing that beginning activity. So first, let me talk very briefly about the agenda. We're going to do 4 things tonight. So first, we're going to spend a little time at the beginning, and we're going to give you a chance to really share your own personal stories. What was it like in school for you? And we do this for a reason. We found, in my experience doing this work, whenever we talk about any kind of policy issue, whether it's education or healthcare or downtown revitalization, the conversation is always of much higher quality when we start with personal experiences. It just makes it a much more real, grounded conversation. So that's going to be our starting point. The second thing we're going to do is give you a chance to kind of look ahead 5 years and think about what you hope things would be like around here. And in order to guide that conversation, we're going to use the 4 strategic goals that the district has come up with. They're very big picture, so they'll provide an umbrella for you to pretty much talk about anything you want. But we thought it would be a good idea to build on existing work. We're going to give you a chance to just share some of the strengths that you think in particular your elementary school brings to the district, because all of the other towns, that's what they've had a chance to talk about. If we have time at the end, we would like to leave a few minutes for a completely open conversation where you can bring up anything you want to talk about related to education. So that's our plan for the night. Does that make sense? Okay, let's dive right in. So what I'm going to do is ask you to take just a minute and think about a really memorable experience that you had from your days in school. And it can be something that was really wonderful that you remember that stands out for you, or it could be a really challenging experience that you had. And I'm going to invite you to turn to the person next to you, and we'll start with you as a pair and go around the circle. And I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to just share your stories. And we have this bell just to make it possible. In Lincoln, we could never get anyone to stop talking, so we brought a bell in the other towns. And so when there's about a minute left, I'll ring the bell so that if your partner hasn't had a chance to share their story, they can get to it. So go ahead. So it would be great to just hear a couple of stories, and people would be willing to share a few stories. First, about something really great that happened in your school experience. Yes? Nick. I love this. Okay, what's a good do you want me to tell it? You tell it.
Okay, it was 2nd grade. I had moved from Kenya to Massachusetts. And within the first couple of weeks, I was very nervous, and Mrs. Graham said, we're going out to the playground, and we're going to pick dandelions and make soup out of the dandelions. And at that point, I realized that anything's possible, like school is fun, and that really opened up a lot of, just like a world of learning for me that I hadn't perceived. So, yeah, that was it.
Great, thank you. Dandelions. Any other experiences that stand out, positive experiences?
I had one that also I laughed at, and then Taryn said, oh, you should share that one. I remember being in kindergarten and being outside, about to leave the school to go home, and a snowflake fell on my eyelash, and this 6th grader just smiled at me, kind of like, oh, yeah. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this 6th grader gave me this attention, and it was calm and kind and silent, and I just felt like all warm and fuzzy.
How about one more? Okay.
So I was really nervous in preschool. It was like, first school, whatever. And I was having a hard time adjusting, and my teacher took a glass of water and she made a rainbow with it, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. And I used that story to help our kids become comfortable with going to school. It was really nervous as well.
Great, thank you. How about some challenging experiences that people have had?
Yes. I think we were kind of talking about teachers that actually really cared about and helping us to feel welcome and adjusted. But I think personally, I always had a difficult time when we had teachers who really seemed like they didn't give a damn, and they were just there, because it was a paycheck. I think that's wrong. But I had a couple experiences with that growing up.
Any Any other challenging experiences that people talked about? Yes.
I went to 4 different elementary schools, and that was challenging. Yeah, moving a lot.
How many people had either positive or challenging experiences that had to do with your teachers when you told your stories? Yeah. How many people had positive experiences that had to do with like a hands-on kind of thing? Yeah. That's what I've noticed when I've done these conversations. The hands-on stuff people seem to really remember. Okay, great, thank you. So now let's start practicing looking ahead. So if you're up for it, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a minute and just imagine, do some imagining. I'm going to read a few things and then we'll talk some more. So I want you to just imagine how you think the world is going to be 10 years from now. And I want you to keep in mind some trends that people often talk about when they look ahead. So trends in technology, globalization, migration, climate change, governance. Thinking ahead 10 years and thinking about some of those trends, how do you imagine people will live, socialize, work? What might be the same? What might be different? So now that you've had a chance to get that in your mind, we're going to break up into groups again. And this time I would love to hear from each group. And I think what we'll do is we'll try to get into groups of about 4. So we'll start with you 4 as a group and go around. And here's the question that I want you to talk to your group about. What do our young people need to know and be able to do to be successful in this world that's coming?
Like the internet, it could create more connection, more more
What I'd like to do, we're actually going to try to hear from all of you, and Krista's going to be the scribe, which she's really good at it, which is awesome. So what we're going to do is we're going to go around, and I'm going to invite every group to share one key idea they talked about, and then when we get around the whole circle, if there's something that didn't make it up here that your group talked about, we'll go back around and see if there's anything missing, okay? So can we start with this group? They're conferring.
We're not going back to pick our one key idea.
It's okay, because you're going to get to, all the ideas will get out, but just start with.
So we'll lead with emotional intelligence then, being a skill that's ready to grow more.
He really wanted to say tech literacy, but
No, I think emotional intelligence is actually, I think it's more encompassing of all the things that we talked about.
all right.
Okay, great. Next group.
We had, we were worried a lot, I was worried a lot about writing, I think we all were, and just being able to do academically, but we had other ideas as well around being able to handle adversity. So I'm going to say 2.
Okay, so academic,
especially writing.
Proficiency and ability to communicate.
To handle adversity.
To handle adversity, sorry. Handle adversity.
Yep.
How about this group?
Okay.
Remember short.
Oh. I think that any future generation needs to be able to look with absolute clarity at what are the circumstances that are affecting me,
my community and relate them to what are the circumstances that are happening in the greater world without position, without ideology, without, we got to get rid of this, I want to be careful because I don't want to really get into like, oh, having opinions, we have opinions. We've inherited this jurisprudence idea that adversariality is the way to make a decision, and then we find a compromise. There are other ways of doing it that exist, and we need to give kids the skills to be able to do that.
Okay, so let's see how Chris is going to capture that.
I'm used to that.
Yeah.
Without judgment.
So let's see, I think what I heard was you were saying you want students to be able to make connection between the personal, the local, and the global, and to be able to have ways to objectively make decisions without ideology. Is that?
With not so much objectively, but with clarity.
With clarity.
Real clarity.
Clear decision making.
Yes. Okay. Understanding what they're doing in order to make a decision.
Okay. Hopefully we captured
all right,
an approximation of your
whatever.
idea. How about this group?
The first thing that came for all of us is technology and students just being enmeshed and getting further and further enmeshed in technology as years go by.
Okay, so what do students need to know and be able to do related to technology?
Put their flipping phones away.
So balance, having balance?
Yes.
Well, we're talking about like, yeah, what is a little bit of, it wasn't quite emotional literacy, but it was kind of that like communication skills, like it's like being able to having that sense of community that is just of the person and the person next to you, like human. So balance. No technology necessarily. Right. There's like a more of a humanity balance.
Okay. So I hear two kind of ideas there. One is a kind of balanced use of technology, and then the other one is the ability to communicate kind of human to human.
Yeah.
Okay. I jumped the gun on communication back here because I've been hearing so much about that in the other towns. Great. How about this group?
Yeah, that was a +1 for us in all of the things that are affecting people's ability to communicate through all channels that we need to be able to communicate. And the effect that that's having as well on the lack of simple skills to live. Access to food, access to healthcare, access to financial responsibility. So basic living skills that seem to not be at the forefront of it.
So students need basic life skills. Yeah. Okay. How about this group?
I think ours is a lot about connection, like to value connection with people and caring for people and caring for your world.
Okay, great. How about this group?
Well, you want to go first? Well, one of our themes was was about adaptability, being able to adapt to changing circumstances.
Thank you. How about this group kind of out here in the hall?
Yeah, we're talking a lot about adaptability to change and just being well-rounded, kind of understanding different parts of life and how to apply that through different skills.
Okay, great. Did I miss, were you all a big?
Nope, we were the snack corners.
The snack group. Okay, what is the snack group thing?
I think ours, a lot of what we talked about fits under the emotional intelligence piece, but really that kids are very sure of who they are and know that their voice matters and how to use that in an appropriate and effective way to advocate for themselves, to advocate for others, that sense of community, kind of touch on everything that everybody's kind of said already.
How about the group next to the snack corner group?
We said, well, one of the things that we said was to fail and to learn how to get back up after you're wrong and figure it out, problem solve.
Great. How about this group?
we talked about resiliency within an individual and within our town. Anything else?
We also, part of that was, or maybe separate than that, was a little along the lines of incorporating technologies and being ready, like being adaptable with new technologies that will come our way, but also, like many groups said, balancing that with the human connections and how they seem so different, but they're so necessary to connect, to move everyone forward.
Right. We mentioned innovation too, innovative thinking. Innovative thinking, okay. Is there anything else that people talked about that you haven't heard mentioned yet that you wanted to make sure we capture? Yes, Alex.
I don't know if this on the list, but one thing we talked about a lot is that that our future is going to be, we felt, and hopefully it's going to be local as opposed to global. So local food, local energy.
How does that translate into what students need to know and be able to do it, do you think? Do you think the skills are up there already, or is there something distinct that?
Aren't they?
Well, like growing your own food skills and those kind of things.
So the life skills.
Life skills like that, basic life. Instead of having input everything, actually, grow it, build it, make it.
We may have talked around this, but just to simply communicate with one another.
Yeah, okay. And I think that got up there, communication, interpersonal skills, human to human connection, being able to care for each other, the idea of connection, I think came up.
Can I add one?
Yes.
Cultural competency.
Yeah.
So hoping for a more diverse community, being competent with folks of different backgrounds.
So I think it's kind of captured in a lot of those, but one of the things I think about a lot is the like learning how to learn. So one of the predictions for the future, especially more like tech industries, is most of the jobs that our kids will have don't yet exist. So they're going to have to be prepared now to learn how to do a job that won't exist until they're already out in the world.
Great.
If I can add to that, it's not only learning how to learn from the students' end, it's also the school systems, learning how to support different modes of learning.
Okay. So should
That's
we
a good
say,
segue.
should we say like flexible or
flexible system?
Flexible systems?
I don't know if this is more along the lines of health, but I think our kids really need to know, when they're being advertised to, and like what is a healthy choice when someone says like Fruit Loops are healthy because they have multigrain or something like that. So we need to teach our children how to recognize when the information that they're being provided is paid for versus science versus, they need to be critical thinkers, I guess.
Critical thinkers and know how to filter and discern.
Yeah, and our cultural health, being able to look at that with
great.
to lead a healthy lifestyle.
Great. This was a great discussion. I apologize, I know I have my back to it, the way it is. I want to invite you, let's keep in mind what you just talked about through the whole rest of the evening. And I'd like to invite you to, in your green folder, there's a piece of paper and it says NAUSD strategic goals on the top. It's got 4 goals on it. I'm just going to invite you to take that out. And then I'm sure there's somebody in this room who has a really loud voice. And I'm hoping that person would volunteer to read these 4 goals so we can just all hear them together as a group. Would anybody be willing to volunteer to do that? Okay.
All MAUSD students will achieve academic excellence in an innovative and flexible learning environment. All MAUSD students will develop their social, emotional, and physical well-being. All MAUSD students will build connections with local and global communities through authentic work that promotes citizenship and meaningful relationships. All MAUSD students will learn equitable, culturally responsive, and inclusive environments.
Great, thank you. So how does that seem to line up with what you all were just talking about?
Really well.
That's kind of amazing, right? The alignment That's actually really good news. That's what the school district has said they're going for, so that's good that it aligns with what you all just said is important. So we're going to take a little bit of a dive and give all of you a chance to look ahead again about 5 years and talk about your vision for each of these goals. So if the school district, hits a home run and is doing a fantastic job meeting these goals, what would you hope to see and experience in the district, in the schools 5 years from now? That's kind of the question we're going to ask you to be thinking about. And in order to give you all a chance to think about that and offer input around all 4 of those goals, we're going to do a round robin. And it's going to be really interesting in this room with all of you, but I just have faith we're going to pull this off. So I'll tell you a little bit about how it's going to work. We're going to have you split, we're going to have you count off by 8 and split into 8 groups. So group 1 through 4 is going to be on this side of the room in 4 little circles of chairs. I think you'll have about 5 or 6 people in a group. Group 5 through 8, you'll be on this side of the room in circles of chairs. We're going to do a round robin, so you're going to have a little bit of time in your group, and each group is going to look at one goal at a time. And so what I'd like you to do is take about 3 minutes as a group just to talk about this. And then I'm going to ask you to write some key ideas about what you would hope to see on this paper. And then when we switch, we're going to move the papers around. So then you can look at all of the goals and see what all the other people are writing. Okay? Because it's a big group, we're going to give you a little bit more time than we've been giving some of the other groups, but I also want to make sure we have time to do the other things. So after the first round, when I ring the bell, I'm going to ask you how it worked on time, and if it worked okay, I might shave a little bit of time off just so we can do all the things that we have planned. Does that make sense to everyone? So Krista and I, our job are to rotate the papers around. So let's start with you. We're going to count off by 8. Groups 1 through 4 are here, 5 through 8 here. Bring your chair, make circles. And we'll start with you, Meg.
1, 2, 3, 4,
5,
7, 8.
Sorry. 8.
Increased inclusion and accessibility with school and community.
Okay, everyone, this is our last rotation. I want to tell you we've got 3 things left to do tonight. We're going to hear a couple of comments from that process. We're going to do a brainstorm of strengths of your elementary school, and then we're going to have a few minutes for an open conversation about anything you want to talk about. So the first thing that I want to ask is and before we do this, I'll tell you, we're taking all of this data. We've got a lot of data, and you're going to get some notes back, and it will include all of your comments, and we're going to theme all of these. Let's hope they're legible and they make sense. Hopefully. We'll keep our fingers crossed. But in the meantime, what we wanted to ask you now for just a couple of minutes is to talk about whether you notice any themes that seem to cut across the 4 goals. So as the pieces of paper were going around and you were thinking about all of those 4 goals, were there any themes that seemed to be present across multiple goals? Communication. Okay.
We seem to prickle a bit at any kind of traditional academic approach. It was
did you say prickle a bit at?
Yeah.
So anti-traditional, prickle it out.
Innovation is what was positive.
I mean, even Gary was saying, even the word academic excellence really was troubling to him, that it was siloed into that definition, academic.
So was that a theme you noticed, or was that an experience that your group had?
That was an experience for our group. I mean, that came up once in the language of that, but it seemed to be the rest of our discussion was very much outside of traditional.
So that was a theme for your group across all the goals, was that?
And I had the same reaction to academic excellence.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't like that pairing anymore because it has connotations to it and kind of one implied definition.
Okay.
Like excellence is academic, but not other.
College bound is what that means to me.
That seems too limited.
And there's so much more than that.
Yeah, interesting.
I think I thought something that crossover was just community involvement, like the desire that the community, that we get our kids into the community, that, you know, community experiences.
Oh, yeah? With 3Gs.
Any other themes that you noticed before we move on from this?
Well, profound human relationships, which excludes the cell phone. These are face-to-face human relationships.
Yes. I think technology in general, I noticed it across everything because whether we want it or we don't want it, or whether it's positive or negative, whether it's going to benefit us or whether it's not, it was prevalent across all the categories that came through our path.
Yes.
I feel like figuring out a way to make personalization manageable and sustainable and doable,
Okay.
you know, for a super diverse group of learners.
Yes.
It follows up to the community piece, but a lot of what we saw was stuff outside the four walls of a single facility, right? It was real world experiences, connections, relationships.
Great.
I think the other one I would just say is that need to want to build in kids like that sense of I can do this, agency, like I can set a goal, I can achieve it, I can get excited about it, you know, that is.
It seems kind of like confidence, which came up often in our, whether it's confidence in our bodies, or confidence in our ability to do something, or confidence to go out in the world.
Make a plan.
Did you, I know that we went through fairly quickly. As I was telling somebody, when we first started designing this, I said, well, we need 3 hours to do this. And Dawn and Kristen, everyone said, no way, that's not a non-starter. So we had to make the timing a little quick. How did that work for people? Did you feel like you got to have a decent conversation, even though we were only
I think especially by the time it had been passed around, we were reading previous comments, so we're a lot of agreement.
So that's wonderful, and we'll add that, to all of this. And now what we want to do is just a quick brainstorm. And I know that in Bristol you have your elementary school and you also have the high school here. But for the purposes of tonight, just to kind of keep this consistent with what we talked about in all the other towns, we just want to give you a chance to share with us, keeping in mind the vision, right? The things that you all have said you think are important moving forward. What are some strengths that you think Bristol Elementary School brings to the district that we should make sure we're aware of, and the district is aware of as they move forward? Yes.
They have my understanding is their ELP program is more robust than any program, not only in the South.
Really? Quincy says, go ELP. I really
So
Just
expanded
for-
learning program.
Thank you.
They have a very robust program, and is my understanding, and also talking to other, we work in another district, and they don't have anything like that over there. So people are trying to emulate what they do here, and they're doing a really good job.
Does everyone know what expanded learning program refers to?
No.
Okay. Can you just say what?
Mandy.
And thank you for saying no, because sometimes, you know.
No, I'd love to, yeah, the expanded learning program, we've been running after school and summer programming that builds around community involvement, and leaders and community members who have talents and strengths to offer come in, and they teach workshops to the kids that are on like an 8-week session. We have a grant that supports the program at 2 of our schools, and then the rest is locally funded. And it has been amazing. We've 7 years in running, and students have really gotten a chance to lead those, the charge on what the subject matters are, and it really brings together community and school. So it's exciting. Thank you for bringing that up. We're working on that.
That feeling of
Belonging.
part of
Yeah, and that's where it stemmed from, was the at-risk youth survey. Really, where so many kids, we were shocked, said they didn't feel like they belonged in the community. So the tide is shifting.
Great.
The only thing I would add is there, like, maybe this is not the appropriate time for this, but is there, like, it's a limited amount of students that it serves, so is there a goal moving forward to make it more, I mean, what we talked about a lot was equitability, so making it more, not only just within our, making it more accessible for different people in our school system, VES, but also Lincoln, Moncton do not have the same access to that programming as we do.
Right, so something we're up against and that we're always looking at is the 21st Century Community Learning Grant is based on the qualifying community for socioeconomic need. So Bristol and Starksboro communities are our neediest communities in our 5 towns. And so there is additional lump sum funds to create equity, among these kids and families who could really use the one-up to have things come right to the school and to build that. Now with that said, as a unified school district, we're working to build that same type of capacity at each of our schools. It's taking some time as we look at how much the cost of each program is, and then try to filter in other sources. And we've got about 10 record plates spinning in the air, getting different things happening for it. But certainly that comes up, and it's pressing on our minds as well. Yeah. But no child is turned away because of a financial barrier.
So let's kind of hold on to that, and if people have more questions about that or questions about things that are happening, we'll have some time for that. I just want to return us back for a few minutes to this idea of having you all share some of the strengths that your elementary school brings to the district, just so we can make sure to capture that.
Some of the classrooms go out for Forest Friday or go out into nature for outdoor-based learning.
Is there also a garden there?
There is a garden.
We have great teachers.
I get a sense that the kids at BES are really proud of BES. They all, a lot of them wear their blue BES shirts. And, my son, he told his friend, "You gotta come to this school. It's the best school in the world." So it's been a great experience.
I think the walkability to the school for all the kids who live in the village.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wednesday long.
Huge problem.
I think in years past, the effort to connect older students with younger students.
Big partner.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yes.
There's a couple, Krista's and Jill's program, Foreman's program, is a great way to, it brings in community members and parents. If anybody doesn't know what that is, I'm sure one of them
You
could
can
speak to it.
say it. We're looking for people now.
Be ready to running.
It's a monthly science program that the Four Winds Nature Institute, which is, I forget where they're located in Vermont, but they come in and they train us once a month. Anyone who wants to volunteer, you don't have to be a parent in a class, you can be any adult who's willing, and you get trained on this one unit, and then you disseminate into all the classrooms with another teaching partner, and then you teach the kids that unit. The goal is to get the kids outside, learning about a different fun and exciting topic each month.
It's a fun way too. One of the things I think my kid likes about it is that it's not their teacher, although they love their teachers, but like it's not their teacher teaching, it's somebody else, and that's kind of always fun and new. Volunteer and that teacher, or I mean that volunteer is usually happy to be in that space because they're doing something that's outside of their norm as well.
I think our teachers really care about the whole student, the whole gamut of who they are as a human. Yep, for better or worse than my kids. They're there.
Yes, I think we have a great facility, and I think that our students take pride in that. I'm a board member, and the board rotates through all the schools through the year. So last year when we went to Bristol, the focus was on the arts, and we had an incredible presentation by the band, and we had an excellent presentation by the art teacher on the projects that they do and how it ties into their other studies. And I don't know what the other schools do for those types of things, but it was an incredible program to be exposed to.
Anything else before we transition away from this great list? Yes.
I don't think she's here, but I think Ali Kapika has done a really great job with PTO.
Strong PTO.
Really strong.
Is there also the mentor program?
Mentoring? Not anymore.
It's just
started.
started.
It's starting.
Oh, we were just saying, we thought it was done. It's starting again?
Mara Donnelly is leading that.
Yeah. All right.
So as we come to a close of our time together, we just want to open it up now. We know that this district merged a few years ago. That's a lot of change and uncertainty, and we just wanted to create some space for people in this circle to ask a question or say a concern or a hope or anything you want to talk about. This is your chance for a few minutes to have a conversation about anything that's on your mind related to education. So the meeting is yours. Yes.
I have one major concern, and we're going from a system where each town was looking after their kids to a centralized system. And I understand the reasons for that. Act 46 is the reason, okay? But a centralized system, is it in fact going to have the flexibility to be one-on-one with kids? And I'm not just talking about the smart kids. I'm talking about the kids that fall through and there's nobody there for them. And these are the kids that, sophomore, junior year, they're out of school. And does this new centralized system have the flexibility to, in fact, help not just the smart kids, but everybody? And I don't know the answer. I have no idea.
I'd like to see Mount Abe High School, hopefully we can renovate the building or, make some improvements there, but I'd love to see Mount Abe kind of replicate what CVU does with their access program, have evening adult classes, generate some revenue, get more community buy-in. I think that'd be a smart move if they ever want to pass the bond vote again.
My concern is the size of the number of pupils in a classroom. The physical size of the classrooms are cramped, especially in the upper, higher grades, 5th and 6th grades specifically. They're big bodies, they're bigger than me, and there's 25 of them, and they're in a very small and kind of stinky classroom. It's hot, it's stinky, it's not a great environment for concentration. So that's my concern. There seems to be empty classrooms in the building at BES. So I'm wondering why we're not spreading out the students into those rooms. I know it's, we need more teachers to that, but that's an important factor that I think we should talk about more. Class size. Yeah, 25, and my son's class is one teacher. Yeah. Yeah. That's too much.
Kind of piggybacking off of what Audrey
Yeah,
said.
we have sons too.
I feel like decisions that have been made in the last couple of years have really strongly affected the middle school age group, like 5th grade through 8th grade. I feel like those are really impressionable years, and I think we're really falling short in that age group.
Yeah.
I'd like to see some more intentional equity across like grade levels. So if you have Forest Friday in one class, for example, that's the same class who, all 3rd graders have Forest Friday. Not
All
just one.
students.
All students, right.
Yeah.
There's just a couple, it's happening, and all kids benefit from outdoor learning in that time out there, we know that. And those kids feel it and express it, that another class is spending that time on that mountain and learning, and I am not. And that seems that seems like something that's a doable fix pretty quickly.
I think it's really hard too if they've had that experience
Yes.
and then they land the next grade up and don't have the same experience.
So who dictates that? Is
Teachers.
that
It's teachers.
Yeah.
Or the teacher? Principal?
I think it's a teacher.
It's a
decides.
teacher.
Teachers have a choice.
I think maybe we need to provide some support to teachers to feel more comfortable in that environment, to allow kids to explore a little bit and be creative in that outdoor realm. I think that some teachers at BES are very comfortable with it, and I think for others it's hard to fathom that idea of bringing your entire class out there, especially if there are 25 of them and one teacher, and how to be safe and use that environment.
I think lots of teachers feel the pressure with the Common Core, and it's a struggle for them to feel like they can justify
taking that time to
that
go
time.
outside. Absolutely. Go ahead, and I think someone over here wanted to.
I think a lot of what we've been talking about tonight is, our issues are financial issues. So declining enrollment, rising per pupil costs, fixing the structure. And I'd love to see the district try to make Manabe a beacon of innovation, a magnet school of sorts that would have a certain focus that might draw in new students from elsewhere. So maybe that would be a specialization with STEM. Maybe they would have a generator space that specializes with innovation. Maybe it would mean a language and cultural program that would focus on a certain region first half of the year and an expanded trip the second half of the year. But specializing in certain areas that make us distinct from other schools, because if we continue on the same trajectory, we're not evolving, we're not being innovative, we're just doing the same pattern behavior as other schools. And I think these hard economic times are going to force us to be more critical in our decisions and be more creative. So bring in more students by kind of having a specialized focus.
Maybe,
Go ahead, sir.
okay, maybe having a farm in school where kids really learn how to grow vegetables and animals and really got into living in connection with that harmony of the earth and realize how connected we are to the earth and our food and how healthy that is.
I gotta say, I came here tonight expecting to talk about the building, Mount Ames building. I thought that's why really this group was here. I think we all have the same feeling that Mount Ames does need to be renovated. I will admit I voted against the bond all 3 times, and I feel it was it was fiscally irresponsible to pass the bond. And I went to a really good high school in South Burlington, and it wasn't because of the school, the building, it was because of the teachers. It was the environment. And I think that Mount Ames can have that. It's just about having the right environment for the right teachers to be there and teach the kids the way we all agree. We all agree. I'm really glad I came and listened to everybody and contributed. But I don't feel that the building is really where it's making it this really brand new school. I don't think we need that. I think we need to have a good school for our kids to learn. And that's just how I feel.
Thank you for sharing.
Did we talk about the second and third meetings? Because maybe we should leave it for second.
Yeah, we will. Definitely Krista and I too will talk about what's going to happen, because we are going to get to a more specific conversation about that on November 5th and November 20th. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Go ahead.
I have a fear that the community will be surprised at a significant gap in funding that will result in either taxes going up or programs having to be cut, or consolidation further happening. Seeing what Addison Northeast is going through right now, and the conversations that are happening there, I have a fear that the bond is also going to get caught up in all of that. So this idea of capital investment, but also operating deficits, having to deal with both of those issues is going to take a lot of this, and surprises around that stuff is kind of the worst thing. And I feel like it's kind of been the downfall a little bit for previous bond votes. So getting ahead of that and understanding how those two things, investment in our buildings, facilities, and our operating budgets, are going to work in concert, is my concern about being able to address both of those.
To piggyback on that, I know the amount of work that I know Krista and other board members have put into the community and bringing the community in and getting feedback from the community, but we're a pretty small snapshot of what our community really is as a larger whole, and how do we help bring people into these meetings, educate everybody so that everybody can make an educated decision with all of the information, and being able to have these conversations versus a yes or a no. There's a lot of stuff that goes in between that. So how do we get a larger whole group of our community in the know and into our school? That's a huge concern for me, because there's a lot of really incredible teachers at every school, at the high school, at the middle school, at Bristol, and there's a lot of really innovative, creative, kind of on the edge teaching and learning that's happening that most of us don't really get to know about or see unless we know somebody or have a kid in the school. And how do we, that's my, I guess that goes to communication.
Yeah.
But I also know the efforts that the board has put in over the years, and
we still get about the same turnout, so.
I do have just a thought on that. I've said this before at things, but like I went to Bristol's open house, and I'm not, my kids are older, but I went to promote this, and I walked through the halls, and I just handed out these flyers to people, and I, you know, promoted it. And I sort of had this thing about you've got to go to where the people are. So if you know, instead of spending your 2 hours here, at some point you've got to go out to the basketball games and go to the grocery store and just start talking to people too, you know, because I just don't think you can get people always to come here. So just a thought for you. You're kind of wondering how do we do it, and I don't know that it's the answer, but I do think it's one approach to think about. You know.
I know that Dawn was, Dawn, tell people where you spent time inviting people.
So I live in Moncton, and I spent time at the recycling center talking to anybody who would stop, and amazingly, a lot of people stopped. And to piggyback on that comment about getting out to where the people are, this is where this can help the board, because we're 12 members. We don't have our full board. We're missing one representative for Bristol. And this is where we really need the community's help, because it's a lot of work for 12.
Oh, and I did mean everybody, like
so,
I did.
But if everybody can reach out to somebody, bring somebody along. We need to hear from, you know, the elderly people who are here. Maybe they need a ride. Maybe they need a way to be a part of this conversation. We're already thinking about, geez, how can we get to them? But this is a perfect opportunity for you to lend a hand with some of our work as well.
I think that's a great segue to our closing kind of next steps. And I want to thank you all. That was great conversation, and good to hear what everybody has on their mind. So unless anybody has a burning desire, something they just have to say.
Yeah, I actually do.
Okay.
The idea, the concept of regionalization, you know, we've been doing it for 150 years in this country, you know, one-room schoolhouses, smaller high schools, Beeman Academy, Bristol High School. Eventually we had union schools. I came here tonight thinking a lot of this conversation was about the consolidation of elementary schools in the five-town area. I'm certainly not disappointed. You know, it's a great conversation, chance to interact with some people. But I'm big into sharing resources. And to do that, people need to consolidate, think outside the box, but also they got to be willing to share and open their minds to specializing in certain things. I look at the football team. They're sharing that with Virgins because we in Bristol, the 5 towns, can't put a football team on the field. Virgins can't do it either by themselves, so we're doing that. Maybe we just have a 5-town lacrosse team. Fire departments, I think about this stuff all the time. You can't afford to have one of everything in every town. You don't need it. It sits too much. It's too expensive. Why does every town have a grader? You know, why aren't we having those conversations? And I think this is just the beginning of that. And hopefully it will be open to that concept.
Great. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I feel like some people were willing to share some stuff that might not be kind of like the majority view of the people who might come into this room, and so that's really helpful to have some of those perspectives said. So I really appreciate that. So I think that's a good segue to what's next, Krista, if you want to talk a little bit about the next steps.
Sure. Well, I think some important takeaways. One, the more voices we have in this conversation, the better. So there are a lot of ways that we can try to address the challenges we're in right now. The board is choosing not to make decisions and then put them before the voters. We're choosing to get as much input as we can before we have to make those decisions. And I think we all see this as a problem we as a community can work on together. But it really is only as good as the diversity of the voices at the table. So we are hoping and looking to you all to help us get folks to become a little more educated about the different challenges we face and the options that they might provide. In our next meeting on November 5th, we'll be sharing some of that picture, the financials that you were speaking to, Ryan, sort of the financial picture, the facilities picture, and then I think the third thing to add to that is, and what did we all say we want for our kids? What do we think they need to have? it to be successful in the future as we imagine it. So that's November 5th is sort of coming together around that and doing some brainstorming about what that might mean for our facilities. And then on the 20th, looking at some specific options to contemplate together. I think those are the key things I wanted to say.
I just build on what Krista was saying. So just to kind of be a little more specific, because we hope you'll go out and invite a friend and bring them with you on the 5th and the 20th. So on the 5th, we're really going to look at what did all the towns say. And we also had a conversation with 30 staff, and we're also talking to students. And we want to be able to show you where is their alignment, where are their shared interests across the towns, and do a little bit of priority setting around some of the choices that you might have to make. And then we're also going to do a little bit of a visioning activity around facilities. What kind of facilities are needed to give the kind of education that you all say that you want? And then on the 20th, that's where we're going to get really into the nuts and bolts of the financial information, some of the challenges that need to be addressed, and we're going to share some very high-level scenarios. We're also going to have a status quo option and a wide-open brainstorm option so that people in the community can kind of start to grapple with different pathways forward and identify some trade-offs and benefits. And that's the meeting where it's going to be kind of rough to really deal with your reality and how's this all going to come out. And so the hope is that through that process, the board, and they've made a commitment to have a joint meeting with the school leadership team and the school board, is going to look at all of this information from the community conversations and help them kind of chart their next steps around which of these ideas do we want to invest in and all of that. So I think I just wanted to give a little more detail so you know what to expect. And this is all outlined in your packet. There's a little outline of the 3 conversations. So